Economists have long been intrigued by the problem of how to decide whether one outcome is better than the other from the society point of view. The branch of economics called welfare economics was developed out of the search for an answer to the aforesaid problem. Welfare economics allows us to compare outcomes with the help of a criterion taken from the 18th century philosophy called utilitarianism. According to utilitarianism, outcomes are compared on the basis of utility derived from them. Those outcomes that give the highest level of utility to the society as a whole are thus chosen. But measuring each individual's utility and adding up the utility of all individuals in the society posed serious practical problems because each person's utility function may have a different functional form. Given this, the Italian economist Pareto suggested another method of determining whether a project or government policy improved society's welfare or not. This suggestion was the idea of Pareto improvement. A Pareto improvement is where at least one person is made better off by allocation of resources and no one is made worse off. However, in practice, it is hard to find a resource allocation that does not impose costs on anyone. If Pareto improvement criterion is taken literally, then that would mean that any project or government policy which makes just one person worse off should not be adopted. But practically speaking, there will always be some loser who are going to become worse off as a result of new project policy being introduced. The solution to this problem was proposed independently, but at around the same time by Nicholas Caldor and John Hicks in the late 1930s. They modified the Pareto improvement criterion to arrive at what is today known as potential Pareto improvement (PPI). When the gainers, those who benefited from a resource allocation, compensate the losers, those who are worse off as a result, and still remains better off, it is called potential Pareto improvement. Since losses and costs are taken to be synonymous, as are gains and benefits, potential Pareto improvement criterion simply implies that any project or policy that gives aggregate benefit greater than aggregate cost should be taken up. This is nothing but carried out cost benefit analysis or CBA of a project. To put it more formally, cost benefit analysis is a technique used for comparing projects and their feasibility. It involves comparing the total costs against the total benefits from different projects to see whether the benefits outweigh the costs and by how much. Thus, potential Pareto improvement provides the theoretical underpinning for using cost benefit analysis as a decision making rules. By measuring the gains as the money value of benefits and costs as the money value of the losses, the PPI criterion can be transformed into a single number, namely the money value of the total net benefit of a project or policy. Thus, in cost benefit analysis, benefits and costs are expressed in monetary terms and are adjusted for the time value of money. Costs and benefits are discounted, so that all flow of benefits and flow of project cost over time are expressed on a common basis in terms of their net present value, means NPV. If the NPV turns out to be positive, it means the sum total of discounted benefit far exceeds the discounted cost, thereby implying that it is feasible to take up the project. To put it in other words, NPV being positive implies that the reallocation is economically efficient and would improve the society's welfare as a whole. If, however, the NPV turns out to be negative, it means that the costs imposed by the project are greater than the resultant benefit and hence such a project is not feasible and should not be taken up. After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the concept of cost benefit analysis and know the concept of shadow prices and understand the applications of cost benefit analysis. Let us first discuss the stages of a cost benefit analysis. Number 1, project and policy definition. The very first step of a cost benefit analysis involves identifying exactly what is being analyzed, whose welfare is being affected as a result of implementing a new project or policy, and over what time period. For example, suppose the government has proposed a new sewage treatment plant for a seaside town. In this case, carrying out cost benefit analysis of the proposed project would involve identifying all those who will be affected by this project. The affected party includes the people who live in the town, since they are funding the project through the taxes they pay and will also benefit from cleaner water available post the sewage treatment, plus the visitors to the beaches in town, since they will also get to enjoy the high quality water. Number 2, identifying physical impact of the project. Any project or policy has implications for resource allocation. Therefore, the next stage of a cost benefit analysis is to identify these outcomes in physical magnitude. For example, if the government proposes a new tax on landfill sites as part of waste management project, then its immediate physical impact would be less waste being landfilled and more recycled. Once physical impacts have been identified and quantified, it is then necessary to find out which of them are relevant to the cost benefit analysis. Essentially, anything which has an impact on the quantity or quality of resources or on their price may be said to be relevant if it can be traced back to a link with utility. Since we specify relevant impacts in terms of utility impacts, it is not necessary to restrict attention only to those impacts that have a market value, since the non-market value changes such as an improvement in air quality also affect people's utility. In carrying out cost benefit analysis of a proposed environment project, it is to be particularly kept in mind that environmental effects can also make their presence felt through production links with marketed goods. For example, the effect of air pollution on farm crops. Third, valuing impacts. Under cost benefit analysis, all the effects of a proposed project or policy are expressed in monetary values so that they can be aggregated. The general principle of monetary valuation in cost benefit analysis is to value the impacts in terms of their marginal social cost, means MSC, and marginal social benefits, means MSB. Social here means the effects of the project are seen with respect to economy as a whole. Point 4, discounting of cost and benefit flows. Once all the relevant cost and benefit flows have been identified and expressed in monetary terms, it is necessary to convert them all into present value terms. In economics, present value, also known as the present discount value, describes how much a future sum of money is worth today. The present value is always less than or equal to the future value because money has interest earning potential, a characteristic referred to as the time value of money. Discounting in cost benefit analysis is done in one of the two ways. A, either by finding the net value of benefits minus costs for each time period and discounting each of these annual net benefit flows throughout the lifetime of the project, or by calculating discounted value of each element of a project, then summing the discounted elements. Number 5, applying the net present value test. The main purpose of the cost benefit analysis is to help select projects which are efficient in terms of their use of resources. This is done using the net present value test. The net present value test entails evaluating whether the sum of discounted gains exceeds the sum of discounted losses. The net present value of a project is thus NPV is equal to sum of beta t into 1 plus I the power minus t minus summation Ct into 1 plus I raised to the power minus t, where the summation runs from t is equal to 0, the first year of the project, to T is equal to T, the last year of the project. The criterion for project acceptance is the project will be accepted if and only if the NPV is greater than 0, means positive. Based on the potential Pareto improvement PPI, any project passing the NPV test is deemed to be an improvement in social welfare. If the NPV is equal to 0, then the discount rate is referred to as the internal rate of return and is interpreted as the rate of return on the resources or investment funds used in the project. This can be compared with the opportunity cost of these investment funds, which can be taken to be the market rate of interest. However, the IRR is not an accurate measure of resource allocation for two principal reasons. One, many projects cash generate multiple IRR from the same data set, so it becomes difficult to decide which one to use as decision making criterion. B, the IRR is unreliable when comparing performance across many projects in a portfolio. This is because the IRR only compares the return on one project relative to the opportunity cost of funds. Because of these problems, we can use the benefit cost ratio instead of IRR to evaluate a given project or policy. The benefit cost ratio is simply the ratio of discounted benefit to discounted cost. In case of benefit cost ratio, the decision rule is proceed if and only if the benefit cost ratio exceeds unity. The sixth point is sensitivity analysis. The NPV test described above tells us about the relative efficiency of a given project given the data input to the calculations. If these data change, then clearly the result of NPV test will also change. An essential final stage therefore of any cost benefit analysis is to conduct sensitivity analysis. This means recalculating NPV when the values of certain key parameters are changed. These parameters include A. Discount rate, B. Physical quantities and qualities of inputs, C. Shadow prices of these inputs, D. Physical quantities and qualities of outputs, shadow prices of these outputs, and project lifespan. By carrying out the sensitivity analysis, we wish to discover to which parameters the NPV outcome is most sensitive. Once the most sensitive parameters have been identified, then 1. Forecasting efforts can be directed at these parameters to try to improve our best guess, and number 2, where possible, more efforts can be made once the project is underway to manage these parameters carefully. The NPV decision will often depend crucially on the choice of discount rate, especially for projects with long-term effects. Moving on to the application of cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis can be applied for appraisal of various public projects and for assessing various public policies concerning environment, education, infrastructure, investment, etc. In this section, we will study the various problems faced while carrying out a cost benefit analysis of project related to environment. Environment and cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis, briefly CBA, can be used to assess any environment project and policy, but its application to environment is filled with a lot of problems. Number 1, valuation. For carrying out a CBA, we need to calculate or to do the valuation of benefits and costs, but how do we value the environmental costs in monetary terms? For example, suppose a project of constructing a dam is taken up for cost benefit analysis. The cost which the society have to bear will not only be the monetary expenditure, but also will be the loss of wildlife and landscape. How do we measure this loss in monetary terms? And even if we do it using same method, would it be reliable? And is it ethical or morally correct to weigh the environment in terms of money? So in short, estimating the value of non-market goods is the foremost problem faced while conducting cost benefit analysis. Number 2, discounting. To calculate the present value, we need a discount rate. To discount the future cost and benefits, generally we take the prevailing market rate of interest as a discount rate for the marketable goods. Should we also do the same while measuring environmental benefit and cost? Will it not infringe upon the rights of future generation? The right to enjoy the scenic beauty of landscape or to witness the diverse wildlife. The PPI criterion, which is foundation of CBA, means cost benefit analysis, and talks about the compensation to be paid to the loser, here the future generations, by the gainers, here the present generation, may not hold, as it is difficult to sign binding intergeneration agreements, thus maximizing net present value criteria imposes potentially heavy cost on future generations. Third, institutional capture. Many institutions and agencies can use the cost benefit analysis to produce results that suit their interest. The technical nature of CBA makes it vulnerable and it can be misused in the name of social welfare. Any inspection by the non-experts will be futile. 4. Sustainability criteria. Sustainable development includes both the efficient and fairness equitable aspects of the resource allocation, but cost benefit analysis means CBA only talks about improving the efficiency of resources. Thus, we cannot check the sustainability of any resource allocation by subjecting it to the CBA test. Also, CBA allows for the trade-off between natural and man-made capital. Thus, violating the strong sustainability criterion means it says that reduction in any natural capital cannot be compensated by any increase in either human or man-made capital. 5. Complexity of the ecosystem. One of the tasks under CBA is to predict the effects of any economic change on the environment, but there is a weak scientific linkage between the two. The complexity of the ecosystem makes it difficult to exactly predict all the different changes, or even if they are predicted, there will still be uncertainty about the probability of their occurrence. As a result, cost benefit analysis must fall back on sensitivity analysis, which estimates net benefits under different known states of the world. 6. Ethical concerns. Closely related to the evaluation problem is the problem of ethics in using cost benefit analysis for environment. There exist two schools of thought. First, in the utilitarian viewpoint, which believes that environmental goods can be traded off for the man-made goods. They think that environment is like any other goods which is made for human consumption, and thus human beings have the right to use it in any way. They compare the different states in terms of utility and are not concerned how they have achieved the state. What ultimately matters is that the ends should be fulfilled. Means is not the concern. Second is the rights based viewpoint, which believes that no trade-off can exist between man-made goods and environment. They believe that environment is not like any other marketable goods. It itself has a right to exist, that is, have an intrinsic value, and should not be treated only as an object for deriving utility. For them, ends do not justify the means, and no amount of compensation could compensate them for the loss of environment. This ethical and moral belief leads to the violation of the PPI criterion, the very foundation of cost benefit analysis. Next, we shall discuss about the shadow prices. In the previous section, we have studied the different steps required to carry out the cost benefit analysis. What will happen to the whole exercise of CBA if the prices used to measure the benefits and the cost does not reflect their true value? Will it not give us the wrong conclusions? What will happen if the costs are underestimated or the benefits are overestimated? To tackle this problem, cost benefit analysis makes use of the shadow prices. In this section, we will cater to the two questions related to the shadow prices. Number 1, what are the shadow prices? Number 2, why we need them? What are shadow prices? Price of anything, any commodity or factor or a resource is the opportunity cost of that thing. For example, wage rate, which is the price of labor per, or simply tell us how much a worker can earn working elsewhere. That is its opportunity cost. Shadow prices are the prices which reflects the true opportunity cost of anything. This is the reason why they are used in the cost benefit analysis process to calculate the true value of the social benefits and costs. Why we need them? Adam Smith said that the markets, if left free, will result in most efficient allocation of resources, and the prices determined by the forces of demand and supply will reflect the true cost of the resources to the society. But markets sometimes fails, even if left free, like in the case of externalities, where social costs and benefits are different from the private costs and benefits. Thus, the market price of any resource is not always reflective of the true cost. Therefore, shadow prices are needed to correct the market prices. Developing countries and the shadow prices. The planning process carried out in the developing countries has an important component of the selecting the specific public investment projects through the technique of cost benefit analysis. The need for social cost benefit arises because the market prices in most of the developing countries are distorted. Here are some of the reasons why this happens. Number one, inflation and price control measures. Most developing countries are a victim of rampant inflation and hence make use of various price control measures, like putting up the price cap on price of essential food items, putting up the ceiling on rents charged by the landlords, etc. This distorts the market price and thus do not reflect the real opportunity cost to the society of producing such goods and services. Moreover, many items in the developing countries are highly subsidized by the government. These subsidies are most politically motivated without any economic consideration. By reducing the prices, these subsidies tend to cause wastage and overuse of resources, thus not reflecting the true cost of the society again. Number two, trade barriers and overvalued exchange rates. To promote import substituting industrialization, developing countries follow the policy of exchange rate control or regulating and controlling the price of the foreign exchange and try to keep their currency overvalued. The motive is to keep the prices of the imported foreign capital and intermediate goods low so as to promote rapid domestic industrialization. Imports of the consumption commodities are restricted with the help of trade barriers like tariffs, import quota, etc. Thus, the low import prices understates the real cost to the country of purchasing foreign products. Overvalued exchange rates also hurt the export sector, especially the agricultural exports, by increasing their prices and thus reducing their competitiveness in the international market. Export prices in local currency understate the real benefit accruing to the country from a given volume of exports. In short, the overvalued exchange rate do not provide a true reflection of social costs and benefits of importing and exporting. As a result, public investment decisions based on this price will tend to be biased against export industries and in favor of import institutions. Third, distorted factor prices. In almost all developing countries, like wage rates exceeds the social opportunity cost or shadow price of labor and interest rate understates the social opportunity cost of capital. This will underestimate the real cost of capital intensive projects and overestimates the real cost of labor intensive projects. As a result, while choosing among the alternative public investment projects, government will make a wrong choice. This will result into widespread phenomenon of unemployment and underemployment of labor and increase in the capital intensiveness of production processes. Fourth, prices of future streams of income. In developing countries, more emphasis is given on the present consumption level so as to cater to the masses of poor people, and the future consumption or saving is neglected. In other words, present consumption is highly prized while the future consumption is priced lower. This underestimates the benefits of public investment projects providing the future stream of income, and thus they are not chosen over the projects generating present consumption. In short, projects that promote savings are discouraged. Summary. Now let us summarize what we have learnt in this module. These products, factor and money price distortions, generates the need of shadow prices to correctly measure the social benefits and costs, and it is primarily for this reason that tools of social cost benefit analysis are now considered essential for project and policy appraisal. In the planning process of all countries, it has become a useful decision making tool in comparing the bad or good outcomes of the projects and policies within a consistent framework.